The day began like any other at the remote outpost on the edge of the planet. The sky had a strange greenish hue, the kind that always made newcomers uneasy, but the settlers had long grown used to it. They went about their daily tasks, maintaining the small base, tending to supplies, and monitoring the planet's unusual wildlife from a safe distance. Life here was quiet, predictable, and above all safe. At least that was how it felt until the ground shook violently, throwing everyone off balance. At first, no one knew what was happening. A deep rumble rolled through the rocky plains surrounding the settlement. Machines whined as alarms went off, warning of an unknown impact nearby. People scrambled to the windows, faces pressed against reinforced glass as dust and debris filled the air. Then they saw it, a massive shape lying on the plateau just beyond the northern cliffs. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Its enormous body was scarred, smoke rising from wounds that looked impossibly large. Even from this distance, the sheer size and power of the creature was overwhelming. The outpost immediately went into chaos. Scientists, engineers, and security personnel gathered to discuss what to do. But fear hung heavy in the air. The creature was alive but injured. Its breaths were deep, labored, and heavy, each one shaking the ground beneath it. Some tried to radio for help from other settlements, but all lines were strangely dead. It was as if the planet itself had swallowed their cries. Panic spread quickly. People whispered stories about alien beasts, about how the creature might be a guardian of some ancient power, or worse, a weapon of the alien queen, who ruled the nearby territories with unquestionable authority. Most people were terrified. No one dared to get close. Even the drones sent to scan the creature faltered, their circuits fried by some unseen force. The beast, despite its injuries, seemed aware of everything happening around it. Its eyes, large, dark, and impossibly intelligent, watched the outpost with a strange mixture of pain and curiosity. The fear was contagious. No one wanted to be the first to step forward, and yet among the frightened crowd, one human stepped out of the shadows. A veterinarian, known in the settlement not for being reckless but for being brave, took a steady breath. While everyone else hesitated, this person saw the creature not as a threat, but as a patient. The injuries were severe, yes, but they were not untreatable. The human's mind raced with possibilities. There were splints that could hold broken limbs, salves that could prevent infection, and methods to calm the creature without angering it further. The decision was not an easy one. Other humans tried to stop the vet, pleading, warning about the danger. "You don't understand what it is," one engineer shouted, his voice trembling. "It's huge. It's not just an animal. It's something we've never seen." Others shook their heads in agreement, fear etched into every line of their faces. They had seen the stories, the legends, and some even claimed that creatures like this could sense fear and attack without warning. But the vet did not hesitate. There was no heroism in recklessness, only a clear understanding of the stakes and a belief that life, even alien life, deserved help. With careful steps, the vet prepared the tools: strong ropes, protective gear, and a portable medical kit filled with medicines and implements adapted to handle unusual anatomies. Each piece of equipment was checked and double-checked. There was no room for mistakes. One wrong move could endanger not just the vet but the entire settlement. As the vet approached, the ground beneath them seemed to pulse with each step of the creature. Its body twitched, wounded muscles flexing painfully. A low guttural sound escaped its throat, almost like a warning, but not directed at any one person. It was a sound of suffering. The vet stopped at a safe distance, raising hands slowly, not to threaten but to show peace. The alien beast's eyes focused on this human, and for the first time the crowd noticed something remarkable. There was no immediate aggression. It seemed to recognize intent. The outpost fell silent. Everyone was holding their breath, watching the scene unfold. Even those who had been skeptical could not tear their eyes away. The vet knelt slowly, setting down a few pieces of equipment, and spoke softly, using a gentle tone that carried no fear, no arrogance, only calm. The creature tilted its head, listening. Then it exhaled heavily, smoke rising from its nostrils, and lay still for several tense moments. The vet knew that this was the moment that would decide everything. For hours, the vet observed the creature from that cautious distance. Notes were taken, wounds examined visually, and patterns of movement recorded. Every twitch, every exhale, every blink was catalogued. The more time spent, the more the vet realized how intelligent this being was. It was not just reacting to pain. It was aware, calculating and even communicating in subtle ways. Movements of the tail, flicks of the ear-like appendages, shifts in posture, all spoke a language that the vet was determined to understand. Back at the outpost, tension remained high. Some argued that waiting was useless, that they should call for armed reinforcements to subdue the beast. Others argued that any aggressive approach would make matters worse, possibly provoking the alien queen herself. The air was thick with fear, but also with awe. Slowly, hope began to grow in a few hearts. Perhaps the beast could be helped. Perhaps someone could reach it without violence. As the day turned into night, the green sky darkened with streaks of alien stars. The creature remained in the same spot, breathing heavily but steadily. The vet, exhausted but determined, stayed nearby, watching and learning. This was more than medicine now. It was understanding. Every small observation was crucial. A twitch in the leg might indicate a broken bone. A sharp intake of breath could mean infection. Every detail mattered. In those quiet hours, the vet made a silent promise. This creature, injured and alone, would not be abandoned. It might be terrifying, it might be alien in every sense of the word, but it was still a life that deserved compassion. The humans in the outpost could not fully understand the courage it took to step forward, but the vet knew. Bravery was not the absence of fear. It was acting despite it. And so the first step had been taken. While the rest of the settlement watched in disbelief and fear, the brave human vet made a decision that would change everything. Approaching a creature no one else dared to touch, observing it with patience, empathy, and intelligence, the vet set the stage for what would become an unprecedented act of interspecies care. The night was long, the dangers real, and the path ahead uncertain. But for the first time, hope flickered where there had been only fear. By the time the second day arrived, whispers began to circulate. The alien beast had not attacked. It had not moved aggressively toward the vet. The observation alone was an achievement that no one had believed possible. Slowly, those watching began to understand something extraordinary. This was not just about healing wounds. It was about bridging worlds, connecting with life that was completely different from their own. And at the heart of it all was a human who refused to give up, who refused to let fear dictate action. The story of the first approach would spread across the outpost, whispered in awe by those who had witnessed it. It was a quiet victory, a moment that would mark the beginning of a bond that no one could have imagined. But for now, the vet stayed alert, vigilant, and ready. Every step forward would be cautious, deliberate, and guided by respect. In that silence, under the strange glow of an alien sky, the vet and the creature understood each other in a way words could not describe. One could feel the pain, the fear, and the trust building slowly. And so, with nothing but determination and a deep sense of duty, the first chapter of this extraordinary story quietly, profoundly, began. After the first night, the settlement woke to a strange quiet. The ground no longer trembled, and the alien beast remained in the same place on the plateau, breathing slowly, its immense chest rising and falling like waves. Most of the outpost people were too afraid to leave their rooms. The rumors and stories had only grown overnight, and every whisper carried fear. The creature was supposed to be dangerous, unstoppable, and loyal to the alien queen. But there, in the distance, the brave human vet remained, watching, waiting, learning. The vet knew that understanding the beast was just as important as treating it. Approaching it recklessly could be fatal, not just for the creature but for everyone nearby. For hours, the vet observed from a safe distance, making careful notes about its movements, breathing, and responses. The beast was injured, yes, but it was intelligent. Its eyes followed everything, seemingly analyzing every sound, every movement, and every shadow. There was a method to its behavior, and the vet needed to discover it before moving closer. The beast would occasionally shift slightly, groaning under its own weight. Its massive limbs twitched as if trying to reposition themselves for comfort. The vet noticed something important. Its breathing was uneven, faster when its eyes were on the settlement, slower when it looked away. That meant it could sense the human presence, the fear, the curiosity, and possibly the danger around it. The vet understood that the first step toward trust was to show calm, controlled behavior. Panic or sudden movements would only make the creature defensive. Every hour, the vet made careful observations. Small notes on the patterns of its eyes, the movements of its tail, and even the direction of its ears were recorded. Each detail mattered. For example, When the vet made a slow, deliberate movement, the creature's head would tilt slightly, almost as if acknowledging that the human was not a threat. When the wind shifted and brought smells from the settlement, the beast would sniff carefully, sometimes leaning slightly closer, sometimes flinching. These reactions were subtle but meaningful. They told the vet that the creature was not acting blindly. It was thinking, calculating, and reacting with intelligence. Meanwhile, the settlement remained tense. Security teams debated whether to set up barriers or call reinforcements, while scientists argued that studying the creature could provide unprecedented insights. Everyone had opinions, and most of them were filled with fear rather than understanding. They couldn't see what the vet saw, a life that, despite its terrifying size and appearance, was struggling, suffering, and possibly capable of responding to care. The vet's first task was to figure out how to communicate trust. Words would not work. The beast did not understand human language, and any attempt at loud communication could provoke it. Instead, the vet focused on body language, slow movements, low posture, and deliberate gestures that could signal calm and non-aggression. Tools and medical supplies were placed where the creature could see them, but not in a threatening way. Even the act of kneeling slightly while observing showed respect without fear. By midday, the vet noticed that the beast had a pattern of shifting weight from one side to another, clearly trying to ease the pain in its limbs. This indicated injuries that went beyond superficial wounds. Its muscles were swollen, some areas covered in strange, dark burns, possibly from some previous conflict or crash. The vet realized that approaching without proper preparation could worsen these injuries or trigger pain-induced aggression. It was a delicate balance. Too much distance would prevent treatment, too little could be deadly. The first attempts at offering food were carefully considered. The vet selected a type of nutrient-rich paste, one that could be safely consumed even by unknown species, and placed it at a visible distance. The beast approached slowly, sniffing but not eating immediately. It was cautious, testing the intentions of this human who had dared to come so close. The vet stayed still, hands visible, showing patience and calm. Minutes passed like hours. Then, after careful observation, the beast finally took a small portion, sampling it without any sudden movements. That small act was a breakthrough. It was the first sign of trust. The vet understood that patience would be tested repeatedly. The alien beast's body language was complex. Every reaction could have multiple meanings: curiosity, pain, fear, or even dominance. Misreading any signal could lead to disaster. Each day required careful observation, note-taking, and adjustment. The vet spent hours documenting how the creature responded to different sounds, distances, and gestures. These were not just notes, they were a map of behavior, a way to communicate across species without words. Some days, the creature would groan or make sudden movements, startling the vet and anyone watching from a distance. But the vet remained steady, never raising voice or hands, never showing fear. This was not heroism, it was control, focus, and empathy. Slowly, others in the settlement began to notice that the vet's calm presence had an effect. The beast no longer reacted aggressively to human movement. It still kept a wary eye, but there was no immediate threat. Trust was beginning to form. As days passed, small victories became meaningful. The creature allowed the vet to approach a little closer each day, testing the human's intentions. The vet carefully examined scratches and bruises, noting swelling and tenderness. Without touching, just observing, they could predict where injuries were worst and plan how to treat them safely. Every inch of progress required patience, and every mistake could set them back. Night brought new challenges. The alien sky was darker now, revealing strange constellations unfamiliar to human eyes. The creature would sometimes shift restlessly, groaning in pain or discomfort. The vet would sit nearby, listening, noting changes in breathing patterns, the rise and fall of muscles, and subtle twitches in its limbs. The settlement's people watched from a distance, beginning to understand the bravery and skill required to study a creature that could kill them all in seconds. The vet realized that trust was mutual. The creature had learned that the human would not harm it, and the human had learned to read its subtle cues. Every sound, every movement, every glance became part of a silent conversation. The vet began to plan the next steps: how to treat injuries without provoking fear, how to introduce tools and medicines without causing panic, and how to create a safe environment for both human and creature. During one observation session, the creature did something unexpected. It lowered its massive head closer to the ground and stayed still for a long moment, breathing slowly. It was as if it had accepted the vet's presence and recognized the effort to help. The vet could not interpret everything it meant, but the gesture was enough. It was a breakthrough, a sign that the creature was learning to trust. The settlement began to whisper again, but this time with awe rather than fear. People had seen the calm approach, the careful observation, and the gentle gestures. They began to understand that bravery was not about rushing in blindly. It was about patience, knowledge, and respect. The human vet had not only survived but had made progress where others had feared to act. By the end of the second week, a routine began to form. The vet would approach the plateau, observe the beast, offer small food portions, and document every movement. Slowly, it became clear that treatment could begin soon, but only when the creature fully trusted the human presence. Rushing would undo all progress. The vet knew that understanding the alien beast's behavior was more important than any immediate action. Healing would come, but only after trust was solid. During this time, the vet also began studying environmental factors. Temperature, wind, terrain, and light affected the creature's comfort and reactions. By adjusting positioning, distance, and approach, the vet minimized stress on the creature. This careful planning was necessary to ensure that the next steps, actual medical treatment, would succeed. Every observation added to a growing understanding of how to care for a being completely unlike anything human medicine had encountered. The settlement, though still wary, began to offer support. Supplies were prepared, protective equipment readied, and a few brave observers documented the interactions. Everyone understood that they were witnessing something extraordinary, a human bridging a gap between species, showing compassion to a creature that inspired fear in everyone else. As night fell again, the vet stayed longer on the plateau than usual, watching the creature settle down. Breathing was steady, pain indicators were less pronounced, and trust was slowly solidifying. The vet felt a quiet satisfaction. Not pride, not arrogance, but the knowledge that patience and understanding could overcome fear and suspicion. The next step, actual medical treatment, was approaching. And so, by the end of Part 2, the stage was set. Observation and understanding had become the foundation of trust. The alien beast, once feared and untouchable, had begun to recognize that the human meant no harm. Slowly, carefully, step by step, the impossible was becoming possible. The brave human vet was no longer just an observer. They were becoming a healer, a communicator, and a bridge between worlds. The morning air was crisp and strange, tinted by the unusual green sky of the planet. The settlement had begun to accept that something extraordinary was happening on the northern plateau. The alien beast remained massive and imposing, yet calmer than anyone had expected. The brave human vet had spent days studying it from a distance, noting every subtle movement, every change in breathing, and every small gesture of attention. Today was different. Today, the first real approach would happen. The vet prepared carefully. Nothing was left to chance. Protective gear was double-checked, ropes and restraining equipment inspected, and the portable medical kit organized with precision. Each item had a purpose, some to aid the creature, some to protect the human, but all designed to avoid panic. The vet knew that even the smallest mistake could lead to disaster. Still, fear was not the companion here. Focus, preparation, and understanding were. Before moving, the vet spent another hour observing the beast. Its massive head rested on the ground, eyes half closed as if assessing the environment. The creature's breathing was heavy but steady, a rhythm the vet had come to know intimately. Each exhale told a story of pain, tension, and resilience. It was no longer just a monster in a story. It was a being in distress, capable of trust and capable of pain. That understanding had taken days to achieve. Now it would guide every step. The first approach was slow and deliberate. The vet moved with small, careful steps, hands visible, showing no sudden movements. The beast's eyes opened wide, tracking every motion. For a moment it stiffened, but it did not roar or lash out. The vet knelt a short distance away, keeping low to appear less threatening. Slowly, they placed a small tray of food closer to the creature. It sniffed, testing intentions before cautiously taking a tiny bite. That simple act was monumental. It was the first real sign of acceptance, a silent acknowledgement that the human meant no harm. For hours, the vet stayed close but did not touch. Instead, they observed injuries, noting areas of swelling, torn tissue, and bruising. The beast flinched occasionally, reacting to imagined pain but did not try to flee. Patience was the key. Rushing forward would undo all the progress made in the past days. Every small gesture, slow movement, calm voice, deliberate posture reinforced trust. The vet understood that this was more than medical care. It was building a bridge between species. By midday, the settlement had gathered again at a safe distance, watching silently. Most were still afraid, but curiosity had begun to replace some of the panic. Whispers spread about the courage of the vet, about the way the creature seemed to respond to calm and care. Even the security teams, once adamant that the beast should be neutralized, now admitted that what the human was doing might actually work. It was slow, painstaking work, but it was the only way forward. The vet carefully analyzed the creature's behavior, noticing patterns that had been missed before. A flick of the tail, a tilt of the head, or a shift in weight could indicate comfort, discomfort, or curiosity. The beast's reactions were subtle but consistent. By watching, the vet could predict how it might react to touch or treatment. This knowledge was invaluable. It was not enough to hope the creature would remain calm. It had to be understood. When the moment came to get closer, the vet moved with extreme caution. Tools were extended slowly, ropes laid gently, and protective measures kept ready. The beast's eyes widened, muscles tensed, but it did not lunge. The vet spoke softly, using a calm, rhythmic voice. Though the creature could not understand words, the tone mattered. It was soothing, reassuring, and consistent. Slowly, the beast allowed the vet to approach even closer, tilting its massive head slightly as if granting permission. This first real proximity revealed new challenges. Some wounds were deeper than expected. The vet could see torn muscle and bruises hidden under thick alien skin. The injuries were serious but treatable, if approached carefully. The vet marked the areas mentally, planning how to apply care without causing pain or provoking defensive reactions. Even the act of leaning over to examine an injury required patience, subtlety, and constant attention to the creature's cues. The vet also discovered something remarkable. The creature responded to gentle touch. A slow, light press along the edge of a wound caused a flinch at first, but repeated with care. It seemed to calm the beast, almost like reassurance. This tiny breakthrough was enormous. It meant that if done correctly, treatment could proceed. The key was patience, understanding, and empathy. The creature was not a mindless beast. It was intelligent, capable of trust, and capable of responding positively to care. Food continued to be an important tool. The vet offered small portions at intervals, using it as a way to measure stress and comfort. Each time the creature took food calmly, trust grew. Each time it flinched or hesitated, the vet learned something about its pain or fears. It was a constant feedback loop, where observation and action informed each other. Slowly, cautiously, progress was being made. The settlement watched, fascinated and tense. Few had ever witnessed such a scene. A human interacting with a creature so massive, intelligent, and potentially dangerous, without fear, aggression, or dominance. The vet's presence was steady, controlled, and entirely focused on care. Every step, every gesture was deliberate. Every small success, like the creature taking a bite or remaining calm while observed closely, was celebrated quietly by those watching from a distance. By late afternoon, the vet attempted the first minor physical examination. Using long tools to avoid direct contact, they probed gently around an injured limb, testing mobility and observing reactions. The creature flinched but did not attack. That alone was a major achievement. The vet noted swelling, tenderness, and bruising, mentally planning the next steps for treatment. Every observation added to a growing understanding of how to care for a being completely unlike anything humans had ever treated. Patience was tested repeatedly. At times, the beast would suddenly shift, groaning in pain or irritation. The vet stayed calm, retreating slightly when necessary, always communicating reassurance through voice and movement. The creature began to respond less violently, more predictably. It became clear that the relationship was reciprocal. The vet learned from the beast's reactions, and the beast began to learn that the human presence was not a threat. As night approached, the sky turned darker, and the alien constellations became visible. The vet stayed with the creature longer than usual, monitoring breathing, position, and reactions to the cooling air. Small signs of fatigue were noted, and the vet realized that planning the first major treatment would require even more careful observation. Trust had been established, but it was fragile. Any mistake could set progress back days. By the end of part 3, the first real approach had been made successfully. The vet had come close, observed injuries directly, and begun the delicate process of preparation for treatment. The alien beast, once a terrifying presence, had allowed a human into its space, responding with subtle gestures of trust and caution. The settlement, still in awe, began to understand that courage was not in bravado, but in patience, knowledge, and empathy. The day closed with a quiet sense of accomplishment. The vet knew the hardest work was still ahead, but the foundation was laid. Observation had become communication. Trust had been earned. And slowly, step by step, the impossible was beginning to feel possible. Tomorrow the real treatment would begin, and the human vet would take another bold step into history, bridging the gap between species with skill, compassion, and courage. The morning air was cool, carrying a faint smell of dust and alien vegetation. The settlement stirred quietly, the events of the past days still fresh in everyone's minds. The alien beast remained on the plateau, massive and still imposing, but calmer than before. Its eyes followed the brave human vet, who had spent weeks observing, understanding, and building trust. Today was the day that treatment would begin, the day that the vet would take the next bold step. Preparation took hours. Every tool was inspected, every piece of equipment tested. Bandages, splints, antiseptics, and nutrient gels were all laid out carefully. Nothing could be rushed. One wrong move might injure the creature further or trigger a violent reaction. The vet knew that this was more than a medical procedure. It was a delicate negotiation of trust and courage. Every step had to be precise, every gesture intentional. Before approaching, the vet spent time observing the beast, noting every movement, every breath, every subtle change in posture. Its eyes followed the human closely, ears flicking as if listening to unspoken words. The vet understood that the creature was aware of the intention behind every movement, and that awareness would dictate the success of the treatment. Patience was crucial. Any sudden motion, loud sound, or misstep could undo weeks of progress. The first task was to calm the creature. Using gentle tones and slow, deliberate movements, the vet approached closer than ever before. The alien beast shifted slightly, muscles tensing, but it did not retreat or strike. Food was offered again, a small portion placed on a tray near its massive head. The creature sniffed, hesitated, and then accepted it, consuming it slowly. That simple act reinforced the trust they had built, trust that would be tested as the vet moved toward its injuries. The vet began with the least painful areas, examining wounds that were smaller and more accessible. Using long tools and careful touch, the vet cleaned abrasions, applied antiseptic gels, and monitored the creature's reactions. Each time the creature flinched, the vet adjusted, moving slower, gentler, and speaking softly. Every gesture was a message: patience, safety, and empathy. The creature responded subtly, easing tension in its limbs, relaxing slightly under the careful hands. Other members of the settlement watched from a safe distance. Their fear was still there, but curiosity and admiration had replaced much of it. Few could imagine the courage required to stand so close to a being that could, at any moment, crush everything in sight. Yet the vet's calm demeanor and careful approach were contagious. Even those who had doubted now saw what was possible when fear was tempered with knowledge and patience. Time passed slowly. Cleaning wounds, applying gels, and observing reactions required hours. The vet documented everything, noting which areas were more sensitive, which movements caused discomfort, and which gestures of reassurance helped calm the creature. It was painstaking work, but it was necessary. Rushing would risk injury, not just for the creature, but for everyone nearby. The vet noticed new injuries, deeper ones that had been hidden under layers of thick skin and alien tissue. Bruises, small fractures, and inflamed areas required careful planning. Direct contact would be unavoidable, but it had to be done in a way that minimized pain and fear. The vet decided to start with splints for the smaller limbs, using soft, flexible materials that could be secured without causing discomfort. The first application of a splint was tense. The creature's massive eyes followed every movement, muscles tightening in anticipation. The vet spoke softly, moving slowly, guiding the limb with care. The beast flinched, let out a low growl, but did not resist further. Once the splint was in place, the vet held it gently, letting the creature adjust. The tension eased, and the first small victory was achieved. Every minor success was celebrated internally, proof that trust was real, that treatment was possible, and that patients could overcome fear. Next came cleaning and dressing the more serious wounds. The vet used long, specialized tools to avoid getting too close initially, testing reactions carefully. The alien beast occasionally twitched or shifted its massive body, but each movement was read and responded to with calm precision. It became clear that the creature was not mindless. It understood the intention behind the care. Pain was inevitable, but the vet's presence conveyed reassurance, and slowly, the creature allowed itself to endure the necessary procedures. Food continued to play a critical role. Small portions were given between treatments, a way to reinforce trust and provide nourishment during the exhausting process. The creature accepted the food calmly, sometimes taking it from the vet's hand with surprising gentleness for its size. This interaction, small but profound, symbolized a growing bond. It showed that even the most fearsome beings could respond to kindness and consistency. By midday, the vet had made considerable progress. Minor wounds were cleaned, splints were in place, and the creature appeared less tense. Each hour had built on the previous day's observations, each gentle movement reinforcing trust. The settlement watched in awe as the impossible unfolded before their eyes. A human treating a massive, intelligent alien beast, step by step, without fear, without force, only with patience and skill. The creature's behavior began to change subtly. Breathing was steadier, movements less frantic, and reactions less defensive. The vet noticed this and adapted the treatment plan accordingly. Deeper wounds were approached with care, using longer tools and slower motions. The alien beast's intelligence and ability to respond to reassurance became a guiding force for the vet. Every flinch was interpreted, every subtle sign of discomfort noted. By late afternoon, a breakthrough occurred. The creature allowed the vet to get closer than ever before, positioning itself in a way that made treatment easier. The vet gently pressed on an inflamed area, monitoring the reaction. The creature flinched, then relaxed. It was a silent acknowledgement. The human was trusted. The intentions were understood, and the pain, though present, was acceptable because it was part of healing. The vet continued working carefully, alternating between cleaning, dressing, and providing nourishment. Each step reinforced the bond, each success building confidence. The alien beast, once feared and untouchable, had begun to cooperate. There was still caution, still wariness, but the change was profound. Trust was no longer one-sided. The creature had chosen to accept care, and that choice spoke volumes about its intelligence and awareness. Evening fell, painting the sky with streaks of alien colors. The vet stayed with the creature, observing as it rested, breathing easier and adjusting to the splints and bandages. The work had been exhausting, but the results were undeniable. The alien beast was safer, more comfortable, and more open to future treatment. Every challenge had been met with patience, skill, and empathy, and the settlement had witnessed a moment that would be remembered for years. By the end of the day, it was clear that a new phase had begun. Observation and understanding had led to the first real medical treatment. The alien beast had endured procedures without aggression, responded to reassurance, and allowed close human contact. The vet had shown that courage was not about rushing into danger, but about preparation, knowledge, and empathy. The settlement, still cautious, began to feel a new sense of possibility. The impossible had been achieved, not through force but through trust. The human vet had become more than a caregiver. They were a bridge between worlds, a symbol of patience and courage. And while challenges remained, the path forward was clearer. Healing was now possible, and the bond between human and beast had begun in earnest. As night settled over the plateau, the vet took one last look at the creature. Breathing steady, injuries tended to, and tension eased, it seemed almost peaceful. The work had been grueling, the risks immense, but the outcome was worth every moment. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, deeper wounds to address, and further tests of patience and courage. But for now, a milestone had been reached. The alien beast had allowed a human to care for it, and in doing so, had begun a journey that neither species could have imagined just days ago. The sun rose slowly over the alien landscape, casting long shadows across the plateau. The air was still, carrying a faint metallic scent mixed with the natural aromas of the planet. The alien beast, massive and imposing, rested on the plateau, breathing steadily. Its injuries, though still serious, had begun to heal under the careful attention of the human vet. The settlement was buzzing quietly with anticipation. Today was not just about treatment. Something extraordinary was about to happen. Word had traveled quickly, carried by the whispers and careful communications of the settlement. The alien queen herself was on her way. For centuries, she had ruled with authority over the nearby regions, her presence commanding awe and fear. She was known for her intelligence, her strictness, and her absolute loyalty to the creatures under her care. Few humans had ever seen her, and even fewer had lived to tell the tale. The vet, however, remained focused. There was no time for fear. Courage and calm would be required, now more than ever. The alien queen's arrival was unlike anything the settlement had seen. A massive spacecraft hovered just above the plateau, its engines humming softly, and shadows stretched across the ground as the craft descended. From it emerged the alien queen herself, tall, regal, and imposing, with eyes that seemed to pierce through every doubt. She walked slowly, every step deliberate, her attention entirely on the injured beast. The settlement fell silent. Fear, curiosity, and awe mingled in equal measure. The beast, surprisingly, reacted calmly to her presence. It shifted slightly, its massive eyes following the queen as she approached. There was a moment of tension, the kind that made hearts race. Everyone expected aggression. After all, these creatures were known to be fiercely protective. Yet the beast remained still. It seemed to understand that the queen's arrival was not a threat, but something connected to its own well-being. The vet watched closely, noting every subtle reaction. The queen stopped a few meters from the beast, her eyes scanning the human vet. There was a long, tense pause. The vet remained calm, hands visible, voice soft, movements deliberate. The queen's gaze was intense, as if weighing the human's intentions. Then slowly she extended a gesture, a simple, almost imperceptible sign of permission. The vet understood immediately. This was a test, a silent communication. Respect, patience, and calm had brought them this far. But now trust would be measured in a new way. The vet approached the beast with even greater care, aware that every action was being observed. Tools and supplies were positioned thoughtfully, each movement slow and deliberate. The queen watched, her posture rigid yet not threatening. The vet began examining the creature's deeper injuries, using long, precise tools to avoid startling it. Each time the beast flinched, the vet adjusted, moving slower, speaking softly. It was a delicate dance, one that required skill, patience, and absolute focus. For the first time, the queen spoke. Her voice was calm but commanding, a language entirely alien, yet the tone was unmistakable. It carried authority, concern, and curiosity. The beast responded, tilting its head slightly, and the vet realized that the words were not just commands, they were part of a dialogue, a conversation built on respect and observation. The human, though unable to understand every word, recognized the intention and continued with care. The queen observed closely as the vet worked on the creature's more serious wounds. Bandages were applied, splints adjusted, and antiseptic gels carefully placed. Each movement was deliberate, intended to minimize pain while ensuring healing. The alien beast, under the careful guidance of the human, tolerated the procedures. Flinches were gentle, movements controlled, and reactions predictable. The vet felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. Trust had been established not just with the beast, but in the presence of its ruler. Small gestures mattered more than words. The vet offered food, placing small portions close to the creature, reinforcing calm and cooperation. The beast accepted it without hesitation, a sign that trust was solidifying. The queen watched, eyes attentive, occasionally making subtle gestures to communicate with her companion. The vet observed these interactions carefully, learning not only about the creature's needs but also about its relationship with the queen. It was an extraordinary lesson in empathy, observation, and interspecies communication. Hours passed in this careful, deliberate manner. The vet alternated between treatment, observation, and nourishment, ensuring that the creature remained calm and comfortable. Each small success was a breakthrough, a flinch that became smaller, a movement that became smoother, a gesture of trust that became more frequent. The queen's presence added pressure, but it also reinforced the importance of calm, deliberate action. The vet knew that this moment would define the future of the relationship between human and alien. At one point, the beast shifted unexpectedly, and the vet froze, hands steady, ready to adjust. The queen made a subtle gesture, a signal of reassurance. The creature responded instantly, relaxing slightly. It was a powerful demonstration of trust, not just between human and beast, but among all three parties. The vet realized that the bond being formed was deeper than simple treatment. It was respect, understanding, and recognition of courage and care. The settlement watched in awe from a distance. Many had feared this moment, expecting chaos, aggression, or disaster. Instead, they saw patience, skill, and courage in action. The human vet had not only survived the presence of the alien queen, but had continued to treat the creature with care and precision. Every movement, every decision had been calculated, intentional, and guided by empathy. It was an example of bravery that went beyond heroics. It was intelligence, patience, and understanding in action. As evening approached, the creature seemed more relaxed than it had in weeks. Breathing was steady, posture less rigid, and responses predictable. The vet took a moment to observe, noting improvements and planning for the next steps. The queen remained nearby watching, her presence imposing yet respectful. It was clear that she recognized the human's efforts, the care, and the courage involved. Trust had been earned not only from the beast but from the ruler herself. In a remarkable gesture, the queen extended her hand toward the vet, not as a threat, but as acknowledgement. The vet, understanding the significance, nodded subtly in return. It was a quiet moment, but it carried immense meaning. Respect had been earned across species, boundaries had been bridged, and a foundation for future collaboration was laid. The alien beast, once feared and untouchable, was now calm, healing, and open to further care. Night fell over the plateau, the sky glowing with alien constellations. The vet stayed with the creature a little longer, observing, noting subtle changes, and ensuring comfort. The queen departed slowly, leaving a sense of awe and respect behind. The settlement buzzed quietly, the story of the day spreading like wildfire. Everyone understood that something extraordinary had been achieved. Patience, skill, empathy, and courage had created a bond that seemed impossible just days ago. By the end of Part 5, the human vet had not only treated serious injuries, but had also gained the trust of the alien queen and her beast. The stage was set for the final steps, the completion of healing and the solidification of a relationship that would inspire and astonish everyone. Courage had been proven, understanding had been established, and hope had taken root in a place where fear had once ruled. The plateau was quiet that morning, bathed in soft light from the alien sun. The settlement had grown used to the presence of the massive creature, though the sense of awe and wonder never faded. The human vet had spent weeks observing, understanding, and treating the beast. Every wound had been addressed, every flinch carefully managed, and every gesture of trust slowly earned. Today was the day that all this patience and effort would culminate, the day of the creature's recovery. The vet approached the plateau cautiously but confidently. The creature was awake, stretching its massive limbs, but there was no sign of tension. Its breathing was steady and its eyes followed the human with something like recognition. The vet paused for a moment, taking in the sight. The journey so far had been long, difficult, and filled with uncertainty. Yet here, in this quiet morning, the reward of patience was clear. The beast was not just alive, it was healing. Weeks of careful observation and treatment had created a bond. The beast no longer flinched at every movement, nor did it react aggressively to close contact. Food continued to play a role in maintaining calm, but even the gestures of trust had become enough. The creature allowed the vet to approach freely, to inspect its limbs and body, and to adjust bandages or splints as needed. Every interaction was smooth, measured, and built on a foundation of respect. The vet began the final checks, assessing each limb and wound carefully. The deep bruises were fading, the cuts closing, and the splints had done their work well. Small tweaks were required here and there, but the overall progress was extraordinary. It was more than just physical healing. The beast seemed to be more comfortable, more confident in its movements, and more aware of its surroundings. The settlement watched in amazement from a distance. Even those who had feared the creature now marveled at its transformation. As the vet moved closer, the beast allowed gentle touch without flinching. Every flinch that had been common in the past was now gone. It was a moment of profound significance. Trust had been built to the point where the creature understood the vet's intentions without fear. Each careful movement conveyed reassurance, patience, and care. The vet could feel the bond that had grown over weeks, the silent communication between human and beast, built on understanding and respect. The alien queen, who had observed from afar, returned to the plateau quietly. Her presence, while imposing, did not disturb the creature. She watched as the vet moved with precision, adjusting a splint here, cleaning a small wound there. There was no fear, no hesitation, only skill and calm determination. The Queen's eyes seemed to convey approval, a silent acknowledgement of the courage and patience that had guided every step of the process. After several hours of final adjustments and observation, the vet stepped back slightly. The creature shifted its massive body, standing with a grace that belied its size. Its movements were smoother, more confident. For the first time in weeks, it looked fully in control of its body. Every muscle seemed relaxed, every gesture measured. The vet felt a quiet satisfaction. Healing had been achieved not only through skill but through the slow cultivation of trust and empathy. Food was offered one last time, a small gesture of encouragement. The creature accepted it calmly and then did something unexpected. It lowered its massive head toward the vet, a gesture of recognition and perhaps gratitude. The vet remained still, understanding the significance. It was a moment that transcended species, a silent communication that spoke of trust, respect, and mutual understanding. The settlement erupted in quiet cheers from a safe distance. Fear had been replaced with admiration, awe, and wonder. The human vet had achieved what no one else could have imagined, bridging the gap between worlds, building trust with a being that was once terrifying, and healing it with care, patience, and courage. Every small decision, every careful movement over the past weeks had led to this moment. The alien queen approached the creature slowly, placing a hand on its massive shoulder. There was a sense of calm between them, a bond that had grown through shared struggle and understanding. Then she turned her gaze toward the human vet, acknowledging the courage and skill that had made this recovery possible. The gesture, though silent, carried immense meaning. Respect had been earned across species, and the bond between human and alien had been solidified. The creature, now fully able to move and stand with ease, began to explore the plateau. Its steps were deliberate yet gentle, as if testing its renewed strength. The vet followed at a safe distance, ready to assist if needed, but confident that the work had been successful. Every careful observation, every adjustment, and every small act of patience had culminated in a recovery that was both physical and emotional. As the day continued, the alien beast interacted with the queen in ways that showed deep mutual respect. The vet observed quietly, understanding that their role had been to guide the process, not control it. The creature had healed, not just in body but in trust and confidence. It now responded to gentle gestures, subtle commands, and even environmental changes with ease. The settlement had witnessed something extraordinary, the full realization of patience, empathy, and courage. By evening, the creature had settled near the plateau's edge, surveying the surroundings calmly. The vet took a final series of notes documenting progress, behavior, and response to stimuli. Every observation confirmed what had been visible for hours. Healing was complete. The beast was healthy, alert, and aware. The vet felt a quiet pride, not for personal glory, but for the life that had been saved, the trust that had been earned, and the example set for the settlement. The alien queen, satisfied with the creature's condition, made a final gesture toward the vet. It was a silent acknowledgement, a recognition that courage, patience, and empathy had bridged the gap between worlds. The vet nodded in return, understanding the weight of the moment. The relationship between human and alien had been established in a way that few could imagine, and the lessons of trust, respect, and care would resonate long after the plateau was quiet again. As night fell, the plateau glowed under alien stars. The creature rested, breathing steadily, muscles relaxed and eyes calm. The vet stood nearby, observing, ensuring that all was stable. The settlement had learned something profound. Fear could be overcome, courage could take many forms, and understanding across differences was possible when guided by patience and empathy. The story of the human vet and the alien beast would spread throughout the settlement and beyond. It was not just a tale of healing, but a story of bravery, patience, and the power of trust. The vet had shown that even the most terrifying challenges could be met with calm, intelligence, and compassion. The alien beast, once feared and untouchable, was now a symbol of what could be achieved when fear was replaced by understanding. By the end of Part 6, the alien beast was fully healed, the bond with the human vet secure, and the trust of the alien queen established. What had begun as fear, chaos, and uncertainty had transformed into respect, healing, and cooperation. The human vet had not only saved a life, but had also bridged a gap between species, creating a story that would inspire generations. Courage had been proven, patience rewarded, and hope restored in a place where fear had once ruled. The plateau grew quiet as night deepened. The vet took a moment to reflect, knowing that the journey had been long and challenging, but the outcome was extraordinary. Healing had been achieved, trust had been earned, and the impossible had become reality. The alien beast once feared now stood as a testament to patience, empathy, and the quiet strength of courage. And the human vet, calm and steady, had become a hero not through force but through care, understanding, and an unwavering belief in the value of life.